We've had another viewer request, and this one is on quickness. As we explore the ideas behind quickness, we've got some international clips here, and you can see players in relatively high positions here, but as the ball is being touched by the setter, loading down with their hips so they can explode. You can also see footwork patterns where, if we're looking at the middle blocker here for Team USA, she steps back underneath her hips here before she then goes out into her big crossover move to play this ball. Quickness has a lot to do with body mechanics, so we're going to explore some drills and some ideas behind proper body mechanics to help our players be quicker. In this other example internationally, you can see this blocker from Brazil starting in a high position. As the ball leaves the setter's hand, she loads, pushes herself towards the direction she wants to go, but then steps behind her hips before she goes into her crossover move. We'll be talking with a person named Felix Choi, who has a PhD in sports biomechanics, as we take a look at different things to help make our athletes quicker. We hope you enjoy this one.
So if we look at the first phase, the middle blocker is going to watch the ball into the opposing setter's hand while keeping an eye on their hitters. Our postures up until this point can vary quite a lot. However, we advocate staying active so that you do not have to begin any movement from rest. But as the setter contacts the ball, the middle blocker really should be adopting one of two postures: generating a split step, which gets both feet outside of the shoulders, or a speed step, which is commonly also referred to as a false step. This is something that we see in sports such as tennis. A speed step involves taking a small step in the opposite direction of the block direction with the outside foot. In the case of a middle blocker going out to block an opposing forehitter, this means taking a small step out with the left foot and then moving in the right direction. While this may seem counterintuitive and possibly counterproductive, these moves do three things. First, it allows the body to take advantage of the stretch shortening cycle, which can generate much higher forces than the muscles can individually from rest. It also generates a ground reaction force, and from Newton we know that every action has a reaction, so if we push down in one direction, it will push us back in the opposite direction, letting us create greater horizontal impulse. Lastly, it allows the blocker to more quickly develop a horizontal lean so that our center of mass actually gets out in front of our feet even faster than it would if we had just gone from rest. So this one subtle move can help us prepare to move more effectively and quickly.
All right, so Felix, we're working on some footwork here for our middle blockers, and we're talking about keeping our feet in such a way that they're going to be real dynamic as they make these moves. And as you can see, we're either pushing out or kind of split stepping out on the first step and then driving their right foot underneath themselves to go into a big crossover move. Can you talk to us about kind of the philosophy that we're using here and just the science behind it?
Yes, definitely. So the idea here is basically we want to try and get that outside foot, the foot that's actually the opposite direction from where we're trying to go, what's been commonly referred to as a false step, to get behind the body so that we can get some sort of trunk lean so we can actually accelerate in the direction that we want to go.
Very good. Now what Hannah did right there was she actually moved left. That's not what we're trying to do, right? But what Kelly's doing, where she's just kind of picking that foot up and stepping left, that's going to help propel her in that direction, right?
Exactly. We're going to call that a speed step because that's actually going to get the foot behind the center of mass so that we can propel in the direction that we want to go.
So it's a little different here for the antenna blockers because they don't often have to respond or go as far. They don't have to respond as quickly or go as far as the middle blockers. But we still like this idea of having a little bit of a push off of the left foot and then get that right foot to kind of come underneath the center of gravity and then cross over and go.
Yeah, I think that adding in that speed step will help generate greater horizontal impulse, which they can then translate into vertical impulse, helping them get that much higher on their block reach.
Okay. You know, Fitz, I hear a lot of coaches talk about, we want players to take a big step with the foot in the direction that they're going. And, I interpret that, hold up. I interpret that as actually making a move like this. What about that move? I mean, from the biomechanics of it.
I guess the important thing about that is that that step actually then ends up as a braking step. So you're actually pushing your body away from the direction you want to go, as opposed to putting that foot behind where you want to go.
So this technique that we're working on here is going to be real more explosive, real more dynamic,
Exactly.
and the players are going to be able to...
It's going to increase their mechanical advantage to be able to produce those movements.
So you can see we do the same thing here with our left front blockers. We work on the same kind of response where they're going to try and step out slightly with, in this case, their right foot, and then get their left foot underneath their hips, and then take a big explosive crossover step. And it's the exact same thing, just the opposite way that we saw the right front blocker was doing. We like this because we want them to make real explosive and dynamic blocking moves and get used to like this being the motor pattern that we're trying to learn. And we know that we've got to do it enough times so they can feel it and actually make it a motor pattern. Okay? So Felix, one of the things that we like to do, so Blake and Jordan are going to demonstrate this. So go ahead. So one of the things we like to do, when you guys land, just freeze for a second, right? So as these guys move out, as they come down, they're going to be scissoring their inside leg back on the court, so that as they're coming down, their hips are actually going to go back. Hips are going to go back into their landing, right? And they're going to sit down a little bit more. And we think it's going to help Blake especially cover more ground in the air, right? And then Jordan's going to give her room to land kind of inside of her, what would be her stance usually. Let's do that again, you guys, okay? Can you maybe talk about the biomechanics of this?
Yes, definitely. I think this is very important because it allows the middle blocker to drift a little bit and not land on that outside blocker. In addition, it allows both of them to actually land on both feet, so that we're not getting large shearing forces in the one leg that could be landing.
Yeah, but if they do end up landing on one leg, isn't it true that because their hip is going back, it's going in exactly the opposite direction that would put shear force on the knee for like an ACL injury?
That's correct, yeah.
Right, and it's engaging the hip muscles too, right? Which is going to sit them down a little bit.
Yeah, it allows them to actually open up to the block and then close the block. So what we're first going to focus on is the middle blocker's feet before the setter gets the ball. As you can see, they can use little hopping movements to do two things. The first being to time the set, and the second, to actually put some preload in the legs so that they can use the potentiation from their muscles and the elasticity from the tendons to help generate greater force going in the direction that they want to. The movement pattern that we're trying to get away from is opening up that hip towards the direction that we want to go. So say, for example, we want to go to the right side. We want to resist opening up to the right and taking that first big step. This is because that step will actually act as a braking step and not as a propulsion step.
We're just going to talk to you guys and ask you about the technique that we're using with blocking footwork. You've been using it now for a couple of years. You guys are using it now this year, yeah. So just kind of talk to our coaches about what you think about the moves. Do they help? Do they hurt? What's your impression of them?
I think especially the footwork helps you become more explosive, like when trying to get out. Like if you're late, the drop step and the understep really help to like push you out to wherever you need to get, if you're late or even if you're not.
Okay.
It helps get, like once you get into extension early, it helps get more touches on balls and actually help close the seams and the blocks faster than if your arms are slower than your body. So it just helps the move overall be quicker.
Yeah, talk about the feet mostly, okay?
With the feet, like I feel like you get there quicker and you're able to get up faster and see the ball and see your hitter and not just be guessing.
A lot of people are going to watch some of the video that we're going to show them, and they're going to say, well, you guys are never closed, you're always floating, you're always drifting, you're never right next to your antenna blocker. What would you say about that?
Well, I think with that, it's not really our feet, but we compensate for that with putting our arms, like attacking the shot with our arms and getting our arms up quicker. I think that helps make up for closing some of that space. And also, even if there is a gap, it's easier for passers to like get in that gap and dig the balls.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Other thoughts? When I was growing up and I was a middle blocker, I was always taught big first step, big first step, big first step. But the first thing that I would do as a middle blocker, but I had to step in the direction that the set was going. And here, your feet are touching the ground twice, and you're not ever stepping towards the direction that you're going until the third foot contact. So what do you think about that?
I think it makes you make a faster read, and then you get out there faster because the drop step, the understep helps you move out there and has your weight moving towards the block instead of still behind you, and it's actually loaded on your foot, ready to go.
Your momentum is pushed forward a lot easier.
You feel that way?
And I think instead of taking like a big step, then if you read it the wrong way, you're way slower. You're never going to get out. But when you take like the small, like fast steps, you can switch directions like a lot quicker than if you were going to take a giant step out.
Okay, great, thanks. So how does it feel physically too, using these moves?
For me, it feels that I'm getting out to the antenna quicker because originally when I would use the one giant step, I was immediately stopped. My momentum couldn't carry me into my jump, so my block wouldn't be as aggressive as it is with this move.
I feel very dynamic, I guess, because if you get stuck holding the three, you can still make it out in time with the drop step to get out too low, and it just seems a lot quicker.
A lot quicker.
And it helps you fire your arms faster.
Great. So Felix, both middle blockers and right side hitters feel this dynamicness in the move. Can you give our audience an understanding of what exactly is happening that they're describing?
Yeah, definitely. What they're doing actually with this drop step and understep is they're preloading their muscles and their tendons so that they can actually generate horizontal impulse and not just rely on taking these large steps to get out in the direction they want to go. Because ideally what they want to do is generate as much horizontal impulse that they can then transfer into vertical impulse.